All right. Perfect. All right. Um, there might be some of the same stories you might hear, but it's just a different account, a different version coming from me. So there's a lot of people here that are from scouting, and then there's a lot of people that aren't, that don't know about scouting. And so just to preface, I was surprised that my brothers didn't want to share a whole bunch of stuff about scouting, and I was like, well, I've got to do that. So I am excited to do that because just looking at pictures and looking back on my dad's life, you realize that's what my dad was really about. And my dad's a legend. In case you guys didn't know, he really is. I've always said that my dad was my hero, and my brothers, they've used that term as well. And as I researched the word hero last night, I found that it says a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, which my dad did indeed have, and he was admired for them. Another definition also says a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine descent, with great strength or ability. And although he was not of divine descent, the word legendary kept standing out to me over and over and over again. And so I looked up the definition, and legend means a famous or important person who is known for doing something extremely well. And my dad was an impactful and important person by evidence of all the people here today. And he did some things extremely well. Another definition of a legend is a story from the past that is believed by many people, but cannot be proven to be true. And there are many stories from my dad's past that are believed, and many or may not be able to be proven as true, except maybe by the people who experienced them. All of you know parts about my dad's life, but many of you don't know just how legendary my dad is. Noah Yates is a legend. As you've heard, he's a war hero in Vietnam to saving Penasquitos Canyon, which I really didn't understand until looking through boxes and boxes of news articles yesterday of how important a job that he did do and how thorough of a job that he did, and really the scope of work until now. Obviously establishing the senior seminar, which my mom covered while having 2 young kids, pretty amazing at the time. And to ultimately emulating Lord Robert Baden-Powell, who was the founder of Scouting, to a degree that maybe Lord Baden-Powell probably didn't know existed, to being the ultimate host for Bible studies at his home and the chairman of the church. And I know many of you are probably thinking, I didn't know that churches have chairmans. Well, they do, and he was actually the chairman, where he would put the chairs away at the end of church, and he loved that. So he loved being called the chairman. I'm the chairman. He was very proud to do that. And my dad was also so proud to be Nancy's husband. He was always her biggest cheerleader while pursuing her entrepreneurial business of Happy Time Preschool out of her garage for 20 plus years. When she decided to go back to school at age 50, I have 50 written, I just want to make sure. He was right there with a proud smile bragging about his wife. He also loved to brag about Jacob and Alex and all their endeavors. And my brothers both moved out when I was around 12 years old. So I kind of grew up an only child in this house for 10 years before I moved out, listening to my dad share story after story after story about how proud he was of Jacob and how proud he was of Alex. I thought I would finally experience that level of pride from him when I made Eagle Scout, the highest rank in scouting. But surprisingly, it came a few months earlier when he started bringing our family friends to my high school football games. And I don't think I ever saw my dad so proud and excited for me when he would relive different parts of the game and tell the stories of the plays that I made. My dad was always so proud of his family, his wife and kids, and now daughters and grandkids and great-grandson. Some of my favorite stories would be, there we go, here we go. We're going to get a little slideshow going. A little more visuals to this. He loved to tell stories to anyone who would listen. Many of you guys have heard them. And some of my favorite memories would be when he did tours for his friends from church of Old Town and share about the history of San Diego. My dad loved history and was such a historian. And I loved going to hear the stories again, as I had heard them a lot as a kid when he would take us during Cub Scouts. It made so much more sense to me now that I was an adult and not a 9-year-old kid. Okay. My dad was the man with ultimate integrity, always making sure to do the right thing at the right time, every time. He would go above and beyond when doing most things, and one of those things was mowing the lawn. He couldn't just do our lawn. We had to do the neighbor's lawn, too, because my dad lived out the Boy Scout motto, which is, do a good turn, daily. All right. We couldn't just put out our trash cans. We had to put out our neighbors' trash cans too and put them away. And if there was trash on the ground anywhere, he would pick it up, and he would make us pick it up too, because he always said, leave a place better than you found it. And my dad left everywhere he went better than he found it. My dad loved celebrating Christmas. He loved celebrating Christmas, and he loved to buy lots of gifts around Christmas time. And one of my favorite Christmas gifts was when I had asked for a Charger starter jacket. Back in the 90s, these were the thing. Seemed all the cool kids had one at school, and I was dying to get one. And on Christmas morning, my dad saved it for the last gift. And I remember opening it, and it was the jacket, but in the form of a vest with no sleeves. What type of cheap dad do I have that he can't even go get the right jacket? But instead got me this half replica of a jacket. I was so disappointed, and my dad said, "What, isn't that the one you want?" I said, "There's no sleeves." He said, "Stick your hand in where the arm goes and pull them out." To this day, I don't know if he had tricked me on purpose or if, I didn't know if he had tricked me on purpose by not having the sleeves inside, but I did run over and I tackled him with the biggest hug that I ever had. I'm like struggling with this. Sorry. I was getting all the previews. How far did I go? Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There's the jacket. Had a Boy Scout in it. Oh, am I in the way? Let me come down here. I'll come down here. There we go. Okay. Press down. Got it. All right. The day my dad passed, I pulled out a book of letters written to him for his 60th birthday. They were letters from Boy Scouts that he had impacted over the years. And some were from my friends who were as young as 25 at the time, 7 years removed from scouting, and some who were in their late 30s with kids of their own who are now entering Boy Scouts. Many of them are all here today. The impact my dad had on these scouts was life-changing. Legendary, really. She's okay. Not only did it change their lives, but it changed their parents' lives and their kids' lives now that they had kids, and their whole family's lives. The common theme from these letters were, "Thank you, Mr. Yates, for the leadership qualities you displayed to me. And now I've taken them with me throughout my life and into my family and career path. Thank you, Mr. Yates, for all the fun and adventures we got to have. I did things I would have never done if it weren't for scouting. I have an appreciation for things I never thought I'd be interested in until you exposed me to them. Thank you, Mr. Yates, for not kicking me out of the troop when I, as a little kid, cussed you out in front of the whole troop. Thank you, Mr. Yates, for the grace you showed me when you overheard me telling other scouts I didn't think that having a troop led by scouts and not adults wasn't going to work. And then you made me the senior patrol leader who was the lead scout over the whole troop of 60 boys, ages 10 to 17. Thank you, Mr. Yates, for creating memories for my dad and I and making space for us to have quality time together. If it wasn't for you, I don't know if I'd have that time with my dad. Thank you, Mr. Yates, for creating a community for us and lifelong friends and memories that I will have forever. These were all stories that my dad got to read on his 60th birthday, and they were stories that I was reading for the first time. My dad was a community builder and a developer of people, and he loved to help people grow and experience new things for themselves, but not by themselves. When he started Troop 1212, he recruited leaders, and one of the things he told them was BSA stood for Boy Scouts of America, not Babysitters of America. And those leaders who jumped in with my dad, many of them here today, they became lifelong friends. And their lives were richer because they said yes to leading boys to manhood. The themes that I kept reading throughout these dozens and dozens of letters were leadership, fun, and community. That's what my dad brought. All things that I'd always experienced and thought every dad did. Because you see, I was born into scouting. My dad always said, you were born on a Sunday, you came home on a Monday, and you were at a Court of Honor on a Tuesday. For those that don't know, Court of Honor is a quarterly or semi-annually award ceremony for scouts, and they even backpacked me into the Grand Canyon. As a 5-month-old, which now as a father of 3, I realized was an impossible feat. I don't know. I guys did it. My kids can't even sit still today. I missed out on my dad, the war hero, my dad, one of the saviors of Penasquitos Canyon, my dad, the advocate for the senior center, my dad, the town council member, but I didn't miss out on my dad, the scout leader. I'm so glad I didn't, because I don't know if there's anyone in America of the 100 million people that have come through scouting in the 100+ years it's existed that has had as positive of an impact as my dad, Noah Yates. Some of my first memories of scouting was going to Catalina Island. To visit my brothers who were working at Emerald Bay. There was Dudley trips for fundraisers with my mom and my other moms and Christina and Anne-Marie Byrne, as well as sitting in our vans in the middle of the desert as support vehicles as my dad, brothers, and other scouts did a desert moonlight bike ride, which is the ride in the desert that my dad mapped out during a full moon during the summer. I was fully immersed in a scouting family, and with all the camping, bike trips, road trips, troop meetings, leadership meetings, merit badges, my parents taught in their home, all those merit badges, and the boards of reviews that I listened in on as scouts advanced to the next rank, it's surprising I wasn't already an Eagle Scout by age 8. But both of my brothers, they were. And that stayed with me everywhere I went. There were many times that I had to miss football games and baseball games and not practice actual games. And kudos to my mom, who would drive me from a camp out back to a game and then back to the camp out the same day. But scouting wasn't as cool anymore now that my brothers and all their friends weren't in it, and I was missing the things that I loved the most, which was sports. And my mom and dad never pressured me, for all they had to say was, "That's okay. Alex and Jacob will always be Eagle Scouts." I found a letter from my mom the other day that she wrote to me at summer camp when I was 12 years old, because not only did I miss practices and games, but I had all-star seasons that were ended as well. And my mom would send these letters, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but your all-star team lost." "No, I'm not joking." She gives a bunch of reasons why, "So now you can concentrate on football coming." Then she went on to say, "I love you and hope you're having fun. These memories and experiences you have in summer camp will last a lifetime. As you get older, you'll never have as many opportunities as you do now to do all these fun things, like canoeing and whitewater rafting and wilderness survival. Your dad and I know how much you enjoy your baseball and football and how important it is to you, but 10 years from now, you don't know what you'll be doing. And we want you to have a variety of experiences that will help prepare you to do a lot of things in your lifetime, whether it's playing football or baseball or not. The more things you know and have experienced, the better your chances are for achieving your goals, whatever they may be. You may not realize it now, but many of the things you do in scouting will build good character, high standards for doing what's right, and give you confidence in yourself that you can go out into the world and do anything you want. Your dad and I can't make you stay in scouting, but we hope that you will. We can see the benefits for you down the road, but sometimes it's hard for you to see some of those scouting, when some of those scoutings conflict with your sports activities. As you continue to grow older, you'll be able to see long-term benefits of certain things you do rather than just the short-term benefits, and that's a sign of maturity. Well, I've definitely seen the long-term benefits, and my favorite memories in life were scouting adventures, and I want to take you through some of those because, like I said, many of you, this will be a trip down memory lane, and for those of you who have never heard this side, you'll get a little more detailed look into scouting and the impact my dad really had. My favorite memories in life were scouting adventures with my dad. But my dad didn't do things the typical way that other troops did. He was innovative and always went the extra mile and filled in the gaps and met the needs of the community. For example, there's ranks in scouting, and in order to make Eagle Scout, you have to do a service project for the community. You had to come up with an idea, write out a proposal, coordinate with the group or organization you were going to help, and then bring all your scouting buddies with you to execute the project. And then write a summary of it all. But my dad decided instead of just doing one project for your Eagle, let's do one for Star and Life, so it makes it easier for Eagle. No other troop in America that I know of did that. But my dad was always looking for opportunities to help the community. Sorry, I missed all these. One of those activities was picking up trash, right? Trash. Exactly. After the 4th of July parade, there would be a big community gathering at the rec center, and trash would be left over. So what did we do? We organized a trash cleanup the day after 4th of July at 7 a.m. to ensure we got there before the city parks guys did. So all they had to do was load everything into their trucks. And after week-long summer camps, you guessed it, we weren't just going to attend and take part of all the fun. We were going to do a service project while we were there. So we would do things not just to take, but we would give back. And so one of the things that we did on one of them is we made a flagpole from a big, giant tree branch. We put it in the middle of camp. My dad was always looking to give back. Hey, baby. He also liked to have fun and would make campouts fun for us by creating awesome obstacle courses with nets that we could run up and then run down. He also did an activity where there was rope that went through a bunch of trees like a maze, and there was a bucket that was attached to that rope that slid right through the handle, and it was filled up with water, and we had to carry that through. My dad was always being so creative. He would often create competitions for us where they would help our memorization, the memorization of the scout law, the scout oath, parts of a canoe, the parts of an axe, and other various things. We were supposed to memorize, and he would do this by creating a board and then a bunch of pieces that you would have to flip over and then have the words of that particular item, and you'd have to put them in order before the other person did. My dad's love for learning carried over to all of us, and he made it fun. One of my favorite stories my dad would love to tell was at one of the camporees where there's a softball tournament. Some of the guys are here from that, which is awesome. Thank you guys for coming. But my dad loved to tell this story because camporees didn't really have, and what a camporee is, it's when all the troops from the area, they all get together and they have competitions, and they practice different things. And so this particular camporee had a softball tournament. Our troop took first place, and as my dad would tell it, we were the only troop that had no adults playing with us, and we won. We were all kid-led, and my dad loved to tell this story. We took home first place in a lot of other categories as well. My dad was so proud of all these 11 to 15-year-olds beating a bunch of other troops that had adults playing. All right, speaking of camporees, now we're getting to the good stuff. One of the most underrated things my dad ever did as a scoutmaster was rather than prepare and have our troop train for the camporee by ourselves, he created this event called Weeblos Day, which was featured in Scouting Magazine. And for those that don't know, Weeblos is the highest level of Cub Scouts, and they needed to do a visit to a Boy Scout troop during one of their meetings or activities. And early on in scouting, my dad and Mr. Estes, who was from another troop, would train leaders, and one of their training sessions involved a role play between the Cub Master and the Scout Master. My dad would play the role of the Cub Master and give Mr. Estes a hard time, who played the Scout Master, about not having an event for Cub Masters to bring their kids to. Weeblos to. Sorry. Weeblos to. Not kids. They're Weeblos. Got it. And when my dad does something, you know he goes all out, right? So he had the scouts create about 12 different stations that would prepare us for competitions later on, but also a space where kids could experience the fun and adventure that scouting had to offer, because my dad wanted everybody to experience scouting. From practicing our lashings by using rope and a giant tree to create these monkey bridges where you could walk across. Also, these tripods that were lashed together with poles and rope with bungee cords, and kids on each side shooting tennis balls back and forth, trying to hit kids crossing the monkey bridge. Always making it more fun. There was the rope making, from just using a couple cans and string to binder twine and turning that binder twine into a strong piece of rope. There was also cooking pineapple upside down cake and cooking bread on a stick. All things I learned as a young kid through Weeblos Day. Also doing fire building. We had to build a fire and burn a string 12 inches above the fire. There's always these creative things. But one of my favorites was this game called Spider, where I got to say, God bless my dad, who knows how many scout books he had to read to come up with some of these activities. But Spider was with one person sat in the end of a chair with a blindfold on and a squirt bottle in his hand, and then 4 to 6 people would climb under this net that was 12 inches off the ground from one side to the other. However, there were bells that would be attached to it, and the goal was for the kids to climb under the netting of the web from one side and get to the other and touch the spider's foot, and then they would be the next spider. But if you got sprayed, you'd get kicked out. I don't know where he came up with this stuff, but it was amazing and it was so much fun. There was also this giant signal tower that we would build. It was great. I loved it. And some years it was perfectly straight. All right, my dad climbed up there. And then some years it wasn't perfectly straight. But my dad was proud nonetheless, as it gave us opportunities to learn and grow, and that's what he wanted most. It was always about the process and the journey, as that was the destination. The journey was the destination for him. Some of my other favorite journeys and memories with my dad are when we rode our bikes down the coast from San Francisco to Mexico in 12 days. We rode 655 miles. You may say, Nick, what was your favorite part? Was it traveling by Hearst Castle? Was it riding through Big Sur and Julia Pfeiffer and seeing the waterfall go into the ocean? Was it sleeping out under the stars and camping on the beaches all the way down the coast of California night after night? Was it flying down the hills with the wind in your hair and your dad by your side? No, it was actually a giant pillow fight that my dad and I had. And yeah, we were putting these sleeping bags back. We just had this giant pillow fight, which I don't have the pictures for because you could see the joy in his eyes and the fun that we were having while we were doing it. My dad was a pretty no-nonsense guy who liked order, so it was fun when unplanned moments like that would happen. Just a few more, guys. Another one of my favorite memories was when I went to Emerald Bay summer camp. Whoops, that's not it. Cemetery. Another one of my favorite memories was when I went to Emerald Bay summer camp, and this time as a camper, not just to visit my older brothers, but 3 days in, I actually had a really bad toothache. My dad arranged with the staff to get us a boat ride off of Catalina Island into the mainland so I could see a dentist. I remember being 12 years old and my dad carrying me because I was in so much pain through the streets of San Pedro. I looked like a giant child in his arms. This was before cell phones and GPS, and my dad carried me for blocks and blocks until we finally found a dentist who was on his lunch break and saw me anyways amidst his busy schedule, and he gave me a root canal. We were back on the boat and back to Emerald Bay by dinner. As my dad often does when someone goes out of their way, he made me write a thank you card to that dentist, and we wrote back and forth for a couple years, reminiscing about how we met and expressing our gratitude to each other. Because that's how my dad was, and now as I'm older, with my own kids, I find myself wanting to write thank yous to people who do stuff for us, but often realize how much time and effort it really does take. So God bless him for that. It takes a lot of effort to do that, but he always made the effort to show his appreciation. My dad is also extremely patriotic, and every Memorial Day, we would put flags on the tombstones at Rosecrans National Cemetery, or he would have his row of flags at his house out front on the 4th of July. But what I admired the most out of everything was my dad's reverence to his faith. I loved when my dad was the chaplain of our troop. When I was in high school, I was new to the Christian faith as I was raised by my parents Catholic until I heard that you can actually have a relationship with the creator of the universe. And I began to go into a different church than my parents. My mom and dad would drop me off and my friends. They'd take me and my friends, and they'd drop us off at Horizon. And then they would drive down to St. Joseph's Cathedral where they met, and where they got married, and they'd go to church there. And then they'd drive back and pick us up and take me and my friends all out to eat. And every time he would pay for all my friends. My dad was always so generous, and he always gave with a joyful heart. Before the camping trips, I loved listening to my dad prepare for the chapel that he was going to lead at the end of the camp out, as he would sit next to the computer and tell my mom what to write and what verses to use. He wanted to learn new things, and he was excited to share a message of hope and love and reverence to God at the end of every camp out. And it was amazing to see how God used me and my relationship with God to rekindle his faith. These were by far some of my favorite memories in scouting and in life. And scouting isn't the only thing that made my dad great. But my dad made scouting great for so many of us in our families. He was legendary. If it wasn't for my dad's love for scouting and all that he put into it, I wouldn't have had all these amazing experiences with my dad, as well as my brothers. As my Uncle Michael would say, family isn't everything, it's the only thing. And I'm so grateful that I was born into a scouting family with Noah Yates as my leader, my guide, and my mentor, my coach, and as my dad. One thing he said about Weeblo's Day in that article, and I heard him say it to a lot of people who would ask him, do you get paid for this? Like all this stuff you do you get paid? And he would respond, what I enjoy the most is the look of accomplishment in the eye of the scouts when they finish an event or do something that they'd never done before. That's my paycheck. My dad, he wasn't a rich man, but he lived a rich life. And we're all better for have him lived it. Thank you, Dad, for all the fun. You'll always be with us. Thank you.